Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls. And over the last few weeks, we have suspended a discussion of the program we've put in place to assist you, primarily because we have received such a large request for service of existing clients' trusts and requests for new trusts that we couldn't in good conscience continue to market a trust that it could take us weeks to deliver. Again, this week, we're going to have a truncated call. I'm not going to talk about the program we've put in place or go to a Q&A, but I am going to share with you and for the benefit of our existing clients information that we think is relevant. We believe that by the end of this week, we will be all caught up and that next week we'll be able to resume a complete call, which would involve the discussions of the revaluations of these currencies, the turnkey program we've put in place to assist you, and then go to a Q&A. But we do have some information to share with you today, and we're going to get into that. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we think most relevant. And, of course, the most important piece of information would be the potential window for the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of some of these other currencies. We're looking primarily at the same window, which was April 1 through May 15th. We feel that that is a very viable window for the reinstatement of the dinar. And I'm going to discuss with you the information that confirms, at least in our mind, why that window is the most legitimate window for a reinstitution of the dinar. So first, let's talk a little bit about the geopolitical environment that's going on in the Middle East, because that's where, of course, Iraq is situated. On the positive side, Iraq is sponsoring a meeting to be held in Iraq between the Saudis and the Iranians. Now, this is an important development because we have the sectarian violence that's gone on for over a millennia in the Middle East. And we have Iran, which is the epicenter of the Shia sectarian group. And then we have Saudi Arabia, which is basically the epicenter of the Sunni group. So we have these two major factions coming together in a meeting, and that's progress. Of course, on the negative side, we have the feckless Biden administration that has re-entered the Iran nuke deal and suspended all of the sanctions against Iran. And, of course, this is why Iran has already begun its saber rattling and firing missiles indiscriminately into Iraq. So that's an unfortunate situation and something we're going to have to keep a close eye on. The Biden administration's made a lot of boneheaded decisions since they've taken office. I know some of our clients are supporters of the Democrats or the Biden administration, but they'd be hard-pressed to defend what this administration's been doing, whether we're talking about economically on the southern border, what they're doing in the Middle East. It makes no sense at all. But there you have it. So Iraq continues to be a player, even though they have not fully developed as a nation state, where I believe they're going to be going in the very near future. Now, on a larger scale, there is a global battle going on underneath the surface. It's basically between the Western central banks and their fiat currency system and the international agencies, the BIS, the IMF, and these other groups that are pushing for eventually a one world digital currency. The pushback is coming from the regional groups that want adherence to Basel III compliance and commodity-backed currencies. And then, of course, we have the growing markets for cryptos, and with the rise in the price of gold and silver and even some industrial metals, we have some pushback against the fiat system. The most important thing, of course, that's happened recently in Iraq would be the passage of the 2021 budget. And within that budget, there are two issues of primary concern to us. One would be the projected price of oil, which would project the revenues that they expect for 2021. And the second would be the exchange rate of the dinar. Now, with regard to the price of a barrel of oil, remember, 90% of the revenue that Iraq generates is through the sale of oil, and the projected price is $45 a barrel. We're already, according to today's Brent crude price, just above $67 a barrel. What does this mean? It means that already 3.5 months into this calendar year, the price of a barrel of oil has increased by almost 50%. So that's a very good omen for a balanced budget in Iraq, and that's going to have an indirect effect on the exchange rate of the dinar. Now, again, the price of the dinar right now is $14.60 against the U.S. dollar. This has been very disheartening for a number of clients. I've explained that one of the reasons that we see a price of $14.60 is for the collection of the balance of the provisional 3-0 currencies in country. Another reason is that the government did have a liquidity problem and wanted to draw those dollars in, and they knew that a lot of Iraqi citizens, and for good reason, were hoarding the currency because of all of the corruption with the government. But now, with the price of a barrel of oil rising at such a level, liquidity probably is not going to be a problem. Now, with regard to the exchange rate, obviously we're interested in a reinstated rate somewhere around the value of the U.S. dollar. Now, the good news is, pursuant to Article 41, Paragraph A of the Iraqi Constitution, the Parliament can unilaterally, without the knowledge or consent of the CBI, adjust the exchange rate. In addition, the exchange rate can be adjusted retroactively to the passage of the budget. So that's a very good indicator for us as well. Now, the only pushback they could get from that would be that the Parliament Financial Committee that was established by Parliament to oversee the operations of the CBI says that, in their opinion, that's not the case. But the problem for that committee is there is nothing in the Constitution which says that such a committee could even exist. It was, in fact, created by the Parliament, so it can be uncreated by the Parliament. So I'm not concerned at all about the good opinion of some of the members of that committee. Now, as I said earlier, the increased revenue generated by the increased price of a barrel is going to have an effect on the reinstated Iraqi dinar. And the value of the budget surplus is manifest in a number of ways. For example, it will allow for the funding of contracts to rebuild their infrastructure. The projects that are already online are the upgrading of the Baghdad International Airport, upgrading the old Gray Al-Qaim road system, which would be equivalent to our interstate road system, construction of an international highway, which would further link east and west. And, of course, this is something that both the Saudis and the Iranians want. And also upgrading and increasing the number of oil refineries. And they need basically to refine three ways. One, to refine petroleum for gas, to refine it for diesel, and to refine it for industrial purposes, the production of glass, plastics, textiles, pharmaceuticals, electronics, and nanotechnologies. Now, the fact that Iraq now will have the funds to fund these contracts means that the need to reinstate their currency has even been increased. before, when they had to borrow money just to balance their budget, they weren't in a position to proceed with these international contracts. But with a projected budget, and again, the price of a barrel of oil right now is 50% higher than projected in their budget, they will have the surplus dollars to fund these contracts, which means they're going to need to reinstate their currency. Now, countries from both the East and the West are now flocking to Iraq. The EU has taken Iraq off of its list of high-risk countries. Sanctions are being lifted. Western European nations and the U.S. are involved in the upgrading and building of new refineries and their infrastructure. Japan is making substantial investments in refineries because, of course, Japan needs the oil. China is involved in their infrastructure, in refineries, and they're very interested in the construction of the Silk Road Initiative. The Silk Road Initiative is the reestablishment of the trade from east to west, and by establishing this road system, they're going to be able to easily, or much more easily, facilitate trade all along the way. But Iraq is not only geopolitically important, it's geographically important because Iraq is the gateway between the East and the West. So again, this has created the need for countries to invest in Iraq, which will in turn create the need for Iraq to have an international currency. Lastly, I'll just mention that the IMF is assisting Iraq with their banking and digital currency system, as I said before, because they want their one world digital currency. Now, as an American citizen, as a citizen of the planet, the one world digital currency is not really a good idea because it cedes control to a bunch of unelected bureaucrats, which is not a good thing. However, on the short term, it does help us because it helps Iraq move to the reinstatement of their currency and then its revaluation globally. So what we're going to need to do is go to the bank, do our exchange, get that USD deposited in our trust bank account, then move that money out of the banking system into perhaps cryptos, into precious and industrial metals, into real estate, other tangible assets. So we can take advantage of this long-term move toward one digital currency, but obviously you don't want all of your money in a central bank operating under a digital system. Just to give you an example, we have a sort of a bird's eye view or a canary in a coal mine view of where they're going with this. And you go to the EU right now, an individual could have €1 million in an EU bank. And, of course, he'll have an ATM card, and he can write checks and make purchases. But that EU citizen, depending upon the country he's in, can only withdraw somewhere between 1,000 and 2,500 euros in cash per day, irrespective of how many euros he has in that account. They're moving away from physical currency and going digital. So our only recourse to avoid that control is to move to tangible assets. For example, myself, my intentions are to move a substantial amount of this wealth as quickly as I possibly can to real estate, to the purchase of homes that I can rent and or rehab and flip. And in that way, I have control of the asset. Now, in the United States, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to establish a wealth tax, which is going to require a constitutional amendment, so I'm not too worried about that at the present time. But the point being that we are moving inextricably to the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar, if for no other reason than the surplus in their budget will allow them to fund the international contracts, which will inevitably require that they have their own functional currency. So to get back to where I started, that's why we're looking at a window from between April 1st and May 15th for the reinstitution of the dinar. Again, starting next week, we plan to market our trust package again. We have suspended it on a week-to-week basis, as I've said, because of the huge number of requests that we've had. I think we finally got a handle on that, so unless we get another surge this weekend, we should next week have a complete call, which will involve the discussion of the situation in Iraq, the reinstatement of the dinar and these other currencies, the program we've put in place, and then we will go to a Q&A. For those of you that may be calling in for the first time, I would suggest you go to our website, because a lot of the information that I ordinarily discuss on these calls is available there. Our website is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to this or any other recent conference call playback, and if you, for example, go to our call on March 3rd of this year, you will be able to learn about the turnkey program we've put in place to assist you, and there's a good Q&A session in there as well. You can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited and then pull up that call, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited and then pull up that call, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the dinar, emails may go out as often as weekly. So again, thanks so much for listening to the call. I hope what we've discussed here, although brief, has been informative. We plan next week to have a full call, but again, we're going to base the final decision on the number of trusts that need to be established or require some service and amendment. So thanks again for listening to the call. We'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.